You have to try pretty hard to do it. I think most people should be okay. And in the grand scheme of things, what if I took this test and completely flunked the test? I got a flat 0 because I forgot to write down my name. Would that be really bad for my final grade in this class?
Probably.
Well, it will bring it down a notch in terms of what I can actually achieve at the end, because in order to get an A for this class at the very end, like the final grade, you need to have 87.5% of all the possible points. And this test is 20% of your final grade, which means if I flunk this test completely, I can only get up to 80% if I ace everything else. But what is 80% in this class? What letter grade am I getting? That's a B, okay? A B goes from 62.5% all the way up to 87.5%. So that means if I flunk this test completely and got a flat 0 out of this test, I can still get a B. Okay, a B is still very, very much within my reach, even if I flunk the first test. Okay, so if you look at things, from that perspective, the first test is not going to impact your grade that much. It does impact it, but not as much as, say the final exam. So do we have any questions of how the point values work out and stuff like that? No questions? Okay. How many people ran out of time just because there's too much stuff to write? Okay, I'm sorry.
All right,
Slow writing?
Yeah.
Yep, because you're fast typing. Yep. That usually goes, one or the other. Well, maybe next time I can allow people to bring typewriters. Especially those, non-electric type. Non-electric typewriters are difficult to use.
That lets me out.
My dad used to have one, and it has all the math symbols too. He has the special order, the how do you call those things?
Strike plates.
The strike plates. And so as a kid, I played with that thing a lot, and it's not easy. I mean, it's hard to get something to register on the paper. And of course, we have all the whiteouts and all the other stuff that goes along with the typewriter. Okay, so we're done with the practice test. The actual test, exam 1, and now we can get back to our regular schedule. Talk about, let's see where we left off last time. Okay, so where we left off is this.
Odds.
Well, not just mod, we actually went through a long, complicated proof of if a number is a composite number, okay, in other words, if a number is the product of two numbers other than itself and 1, then at least one of those factors will be less than or equal to the square root of the number itself. Okay, we kind of established that because I kind of went through a long proof. You can see these, funny thumbs down stuff, that actually has to do with the way I write something. For some reason, when Moodle sees, open paren a times, when it sees open paren n, I think this is just n times n or paren n. Let me take a look. If I open it up as to edit, I think it may actually display the original text.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so it's just, n times n, okay? So basically what this proves is, this has to be right, because if it is not right, then we have n times n being greater than n times n. Yep.
There may be a way to disable the emoticon as well.
I think there's a way to do it, let me see if I can do it now. So here's a little distraction. Because I have to log in as Kosh. See? When I log in as user admin, my avatar also changes. It's really dark, you cannot see it, but it's caused from B5, Babylon 5. Yes, I like masked characters.
Babylon 5 is a long time since going.
But there's nothing better, ever since. So
No.
I think it's probably something in the filters. Okay, so we have multimedia plugin, email protection. I have to take a look at the filters. It's probably one of the filters that changes that. So let me log out and log back in. That's big helmet. Back to the class. I'll look into how to turn that off, because it's really annoying when you're reading it and go like, what is that? I mean, it has the thumbs down, the thumbs up and the thumbs down. It has to do with the parentheses in combination with the Y or something like that. Anyway, so we are pretty much done with top-down design. Are there any questions regarding the top-down design module? Yep.
Are we tested on the square root of what you showed us?
Mm-hmm.
Are we tested on
No, that part is just to give you some exposure and also to convince you or try to convince you that sometimes you have a gut feeling that this has to be true, but it is always better to be able to prove it first, and then you know for sure that it is right. Yep, go ahead.
I was reading through it a little earlier today, and there was one spot where it was saying, I think F belongs to 2, and then it does some other. How would we write that out?
Say it again, please.
It's on the your
On notes?
yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. So it's on the top-down design.
Yeah. It's towards the end of it.
Okay, we'll take a look.
It was one of your algorithms that you had on there. Yeah.
Maybe this one?
That was one of them. I was just kind of curious how you write that out. Would it be in, how it would be like common line number, or would it be pre-imposed?
How I write it down? You mean how do I come up with the algorithm?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. Did we ever talk about this one? The one that finds a factor of a number? We did. Okay, so it basically goes from from one stage to another stage.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find the notes for this one. So if it's not 0928, it has to be the other one. So basically, this is how I do it. I go from one version to another version. And the most important part is to identify this is at least a loop. Okay, we know we have to do something over and over again.
Okay.
And we also determine when do we get out of the loop.
Okay.
And then from there, I just start to use variable names. The number to factor is n, and then the potential factor is called f. Once I identify the variable names, then I can say when the remainder of n divided by f is 0, that means f is a factor of n, and that tells me that it's time to get out of the loop. And then in revision 3, I use the mod operator, because the mod operator is kind of like a division operator, except it returns the remainder instead of the quotient. So in other words, when I write an algorithm, I don't just start from line 1 and just try to come up with the next line.
Okay.
I look at the overall structure of the code first. If it is a loop, it is important to identify when do you get out of the loop, because the condition of a loop usually tells you what you have to do, or at least which variables have to be changed in the loop itself. It is, it's a matter of practice, and how many algorithms you have seen. The more exposure, the more exercise you have done, the better.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's really hard. It's kind of like, teaching how to design something, which is not, always easy, because it just kind of comes in time.
Okay.
Yep. I'm not sure whether I answered your question the way you want it, but it's
No, that's good.
it's a little hard to explain. And whenever we have a chance, I will try to explain it that way. Just to try to start with something simple and evolve the algorithm into the actual algorithm. Yep, go ahead.
What would be what would be something on the test that would be from this section?
It's hard. Top-down design is not going to have any real material for testing purposes because it's not technical enough to have real questions about it. The only thing I can think of would be the mod operator. So I would basically assume people understand what mod means, and the algorithms after this point may contain the mod operator. That's about it. Okay. So now we can move on to arrays. Now that's a really, really good, interesting topic. Because without arrays, the type of algorithms you can write is fairly limited. Arrays makes it so much better in terms of being able to scale up your algorithms to deal with many different things at the same time. So with arrays, let me just go ahead and start an HTML page to capture my notes, what I talk about in the class. So today is 2010, 10:05. Now, we have written several algorithms to find the maximum of variables, right? We have dealt with 2 variables as well as 3 variables, right? So we'll just kind of go back in time a little bit and talk about, what do we do when we have only 2 variables? Okay, this is going to be a boring review to most of you, okay? If x is greater than y, then z gets the value of x, else z gets the value of y, and if. So just to make it pretty. Okay, this algorithm finds the maximum of 2 variables. No problem. We know how to do it. How about 3 variables? Do we know how to do it? Yeah, we know how to do it. We say if w is greater than or equal to x and w is greater than or equal to y, then z gets w. Else if x is greater than or equal to w and x is greater than or equal to y, then x is the maximum, so z get x. Else, if it is not w, it's not x, it has to be y, so z gets y in that case. And if so, it doesn't seem very difficult at all to expand this algorithm to, say, 3 variables, right? 4 variables. If it is 4 variables, then each condition is going to have 3, 3 components. They'll all be joined by AND, and there'll be like 4 different branches to deal with 4 variables. From this point, you can scale it up to, say, 20 variables, 30 variables, 30,000 variables if you want. But would you want to read the algorithm that deals with 30,000 variables, using this approach?
Even 30 variables.
Exactly, because with 30 variables, we have 29 comparisons on each of those lines, okay, which is going to be pretty long. And what happens if you forget one of the comparisons or have a typo with one of the comparisons? The algorithm would not work in that specific case. Okay, generally speaking, it won't break down or stop working altogether. It's just that with certain test cases, it doesn't work anymore. How do you want to go through a formal proof using the pre and post conditions with an algorithm like that? Probably not very fun, huh? It can be done. Okay, now that we understand the loops and conditional statements and assignment statements, we can do it. But with a 30,000 line program, or the program is going to be 60,000 line program because you need 2 lines per variable, it's not going to be fun. What if my boss tells me, oh, guess what, Jack? We have to handle one more condition or one more variable now instead of 30,000 variables.